You got your
right. Okay.
golden age of cinema voice ready?
I think you'll find my cinema voice is ready for hammer, lights, action.
Just gotta throw a couple of she's in there.
A shade.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fifth Period, the film podcast hosted by two media teachers, where this week we are traveling back in time to the golden age of cinema. My name is Mr. Brown, and with me, as always, is...
Mr. Boyland. I'm just committing to the bit now. That's fine.
Yeah.
This is like my podcast alter ego.
What bit? What bit?
That's just my name.
You are Mr. Boyland.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
We did do new posters recently.
We did.
And this was a genuine mistake. I put Mr. Boyland's name on it, and I wrote Boyland.
A likely story, Mr.
It was
Brown.
an honest mistake. I just think the autocorrect on my computer was like,
knew.
I know what you want.
Yeah.
I know what you want.
That damn predictive text, am I right?
Yeah, that's it. Now we are returning to our video format this week. I was very comfortable last week doing an audio podcast.
And we were ready to do an audio one again, but then
the criticism
comments
came in,
the
flooding in. So
whole 3 comments about an interview.
Within 5 minutes of me posting last week's episode, both Ethan and Sharky jumped on the computers and just started trolling. They were desperate for us to return to the video format.
The typing again, Mr.
Sorry.
Keyboard warrior. There you go.
Trolling.
Perfect.
Trolling. So I've got him here. What was it? So Sharky said, no, there's no video podcast this week. And I thought, oh, well, that's nice. That's nice. Ethan was a little more blunt. He just wrote video. Just video. No, hey, the new artwork looks great. Just video. He's very demanding, that Ethan.
And even then, you couldn't really tell that. I mean, it wouldn't have been a request for videos. Like, yes, this is a video file. There are videos on YouTube. Really good observation.
It was confusing. I'll give you that. Yeah.
It took me a few minutes to decipher that.
So, look, we caved to peer pressure and we're back to video, but it's not a good lesson to be putting out there. Don't cave to peer pressure. We're doing it today, but that doesn't mean that this is going to become our regular.
Yes.
We're mixing it up. We're keeping you on your toes. If we don't do some video podcasts, then we don't get to feel that sweet satisfaction when Ethan goes to click on a video and is disappointed that it's audio only.
And we need that in there sometimes.
Of course we do.
We need students to be disappointed.
Crushing souls. That's what we're best at.
You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half. And now.
But today, because we are returning to the video format,
We are.
Mr. DeMille, we're ready for our close-ups.
We are very much ready for our close-ups.
In addition to talking Sunset Boulevard, we will also be doing a stacked weekly watches and a brand new segment called 5 Favorites or Favorite Fives. We don't know.
For sure.
So if you want to skip ahead to any of that, we will leave time codes in the description below.
Hey, my name is Ewan, and today we're going to be speaking about Sunset Boulevard.
Big thank you to Ewan. I'd never actually met Ewan before, but he was hanging out with Portia, so I figured he was pretty cool. But he also knew Ethan, so...
Balance.
Yeah, but I did think he was pretty cool, and also just quite lovely. I mean, it's pretty daunting when I just come up to you, having never met me before, and I go, hey, you want to do the intro for the podcast you've never heard of? But he jumped in with both feet.
Yes, plenty of gusto from Ewan. Thanks very much for doing the intro for this week. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you at Film Club again.
Absolutely. He has to now. Integral member.
He is. He's now in the lexicon of fifth period introductory hosts.
That's it. We've got a Hall of Fame for him.
We do.
All right, let us jump into Sunset Boulevard. So, we had some different reactions to this film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is my kind of film. I love a bit of noir. It's been said. I think it was Mahatma Gandhi that told me that film noir was my bag.
When was this?
Oh, I went on a spiritual retreat with him. I didn't think there were going to be follow-up questions, if I'm being honest. But this style is very much in my wheelhouse in terms of things I like to watch, but also things I like to make. And I would say that even though there is a lot of classic tropes of noir, it does have some differences. And I would say the big differences come from the fact that I don't think there's as many twists and turns that you would usually get in a noir. Like once the storyline is established, I think you can pretty much see how it's going to play out. And it's more that sense of dread just waiting for the events to unfold.
Exactly. I think that's... obviously, because you start the film with our lead basically face down in the pool.
Old Joe Gillis.
Dead as a doornail. Yeah. And then basically we're like, okay, well, and he's narrating our story, and then we go back to, well, how are we going to get here? So we already know sort of the end of the film, and then we work out what pathway are we taking to get there.
And it's interesting too. Actually, there's a couple of interesting things about the opening. Firstly, I really love just that long take down Sunset Boulevard. And so they project the credits onto the street, but they do like a perspective warp, so it actually looks like they're painted on. The title of the movie literally is painted on the curb, and then all the credits are there. But the thing that I really liked about it was that opening, that really long opening, immediately you are then sucked into this world because we see the cop cars speeding down the street and then turning into the house.
Drops you right in. Yeah.
We don't necessarily know in the opening that the narrator is the guy that's floating in the pool.
That's true, yeah.
Like, he never says, oh, this is me. He refers to him in the second person. He always says, oh, this is a guy that really wanted a pool, or he never says, I really wanted a pool. And so it actually did take me a couple of scenes to kind of piece together. Like, it's you. You're the person that we're referring to.
Yep.
So you only get little hints and things in that opening scene because they say things like he's a writer, and then we're introduced to Joe 6 months earlier, and he is a writer. So you do realize quickly, but they don't just flat out say, oh, I died and I'm telling you my story. They present it more like almost like a true crime look back on the events.
Yep, that's a good observation, yeah.
And I actually loved that about the film because everything about this film feels very real to me. It doesn't feel as hyper stylized as noir. I mean, even though some characters within the film are really eccentric and over the top, it's more just a trait of their personality rather than the way that the events unfold. Like, you could totally see, this could happen.
And I think particularly because it sort of occupies it's set in Hollywood. Like, it's, you're around, Paramount Studios, and you're spending time with these people who are supposed to be in this industry. So it kind of, as you said, sort of lends itself to, obviously you're going to have some people who are a little bit, sort of over the top personalities and who live like a slightly different lifestyle. But it's all very grounded in what sort of we know, I guess, of what maybe public perception is of, like Hollywood actors and particularly at that time. So you can kind of see it's like, it doesn't get too fantastical out of that. It's all very, as you said, believable and grounded.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the fact that we do know Joe's going to die and we're just waiting for that to happen?
I think that I'm fine with that. I think that probably what this is like maybe one of my sort of gripes with the film is that it would have been interesting to see if maybe there was some other potential antagonists that were maybe sort of filtering through the film more, that then it wasn't as clear as, it's kind of a short list of who might be bumping him off.
Yep.
And I think that's sort of one of the things about it that makes it, I don't know, like a little bit sort of, not formulaic, but just sort of, it feels like I know what we're sort of going to go through. Mm-hmm. Of course, I'm interested to sort of see how this relationship sort of grows and then potentially blows up.
Sours,
Yeah. So, but I think it would have been a bit more interesting to do. You talked about sort of not having a lot of twists and turns, I guess.
Yeah.
If maybe with presenters is like, oh, actually, and there might be someone else who's going to kill Joe.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was surprised at how much that didn't bother me, because I'm a sucker for twists and turns. I love that in film. But I think that I kind of saw it as that description of suspense that Hitchcock talks about. I don't know if you're familiar. Two people are sitting at a table having a conversation. There's a bomb under the table. There's two ways that the scene can play out. We, the audience, don't know the bomb is there. Halfway through the scene while they're talking, it explodes. And that's a shock to us. It's a big twist. But for suspense, you show the bomb at the beginning of the scene and you keep cutting back to it during the conversation. And then we, the audience, are in suspense, like, when is it going to go off? What's going to happen? And to me, it felt more like that was what the film was going for. We know he's going to die. They don't present you with a whole lot of possibilities as to who it could be. So it's just like we're in suspense knowing, like, what's the moment that's going to cause this?
When's Norma's bomb going to go off?
That's exactly right. So when they establish Joe, they have him as a screenwriter, but not a very successful screenwriter. So another huge staple of noir to have your lead character a bit down on his luck. And also another pretty familiar character like archetype, screenwriters, journalists, detectives. These are the main types of occupations that leading male characters have in a noir as well. So yeah, he's down on his luck. No one really wants his scripts. He's behind on payments for his car. So yeah, he's pretty desperate to get some work. So we see him actually go into Paramount. And it's the real Paramount lot, which is really cool. This blending of fictional worlds and real worlds. Like, even half the cast in this film are playing themselves in real life, which is a really, really nice thing. I think that kind of grounds it in that realism as well, because you see this character Norma, who is a fictional character, but you could see so many real actresses of the era
100%.
Being represented. She's like an amalgamation of all of them.
Yeah, and it's particularly sort of as we start to work out who she is, I guess sort of representing this transition between silent film and the talkies, like and
The
sort
talkies, see?
exactly.
Yeah.
But it shows sort of that like how some actors are sort of getting left behind and sort of all those major themes of the films about fame and a bit of obsession and this illusion versus reality that I think thematically this is probably where the film was like the most interesting to me.
Oh, 100%. And I like that they build that subtly throughout as well. So he's trying to sell his latest film called Bases Loaded. And I really like the fact that the film's called Bases Loaded, like this idea of everything in his world really riding on being able to sell this script. I thought it was really good symbolism. But I love that Betty comes in and is just like, oh man, that script is shit. And she doesn't realize he's in the space with her. Another couple of really familiar noir elements being paired there. There's like, he's the wise talking guy. Like earlier when he's talking to the repo guys, he's like, oh, you say the cutest things. Like, he's very much like sarcastic, but he's also put in his place when she takes him down a few pegs. So like his ego is really fragile, even though he comes across as this charming guy with all the answers.
He's got this really good mask on, and when there's certain characters get to break it down, and Betty's basically the main one who does that. Yeah,
I really like the character of Betty. I feel like she's a good match for him.
Yep.
Who are the actors? So William Holden is Joe.
Yep. Gloria Swanson is
Norma Desmond, but
yes.
Betty is Nancy someone. Nancy Olsen, maybe?
You're correct.
Hey, did
Nancy
my research.
Olsen.
Nancy Olsen.
Crushed it.
But yeah, she did. She really did. And there's something about the leading ladies of the time that they're so captivating to watch. They really give their performance everything. I mean, Norma gives it everything.
There's everything and then there's everything.
Yeah, exactly right.
There's levels to everything.
No, I found her really captivating, and I loved their kind of back and forth banter as well, especially as the film goes on. You see it develop from almost like we're playfully making fun of each other. Now we're just being playful. It makes a real switch. But yeah, so no one wants his script. His manager doesn't even want anything to do with him. And as he's driving around, he ends up running into the repo guys again who are trying to repossess his car. So to avoid them, he quickly ducks into the driveway of what is seemingly an abandoned house.
But it is not.
It is not. It is the abode of Norma Desmond.
So what was her name?
Norma Desmond.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry. They do say it a lot. You got a tally going?
Just a couple of hundred times.
Couple of hundred. Just a casual couple of hundred.
That's fine.
Yeah. You'll never forget the name, Norma Desmond.
No. They make very sure that during the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So we meet her, we meet Max, her valet, and initially he's invited into the house under the assumption that he is there almost like a funeral director for her dead chimp.
Yeah. It's
what is it with eccentric celebrities and owning pet monkeys?
It is a thing.
It's odd. It's very odd. But I like how quickly they use that to establish, oh yeah, she's an eccentric.
Yeah, that there's no like big reveal. It's like, okay, cool, I've settled in now that I can show my full personality.
Yeah.
To her credit, Norma Desmond is Norma Desmond like all the time.
Oh yeah, all the time. She's forever performing.
Yeah.
Especially later we see that that's the case.
Yeah. Goes off.
But I like that they've got the exaggerated hand gestures and things like that. She's got her stare. Like that's constantly on. But yes, she then has her little lament about the state of cinema these days. This is probably what you were referring to. He says, it's my favorite line in the whole film. He goes, "You're Norma Desmond. You used to be in pictures. You used to be big." And she goes, "I'm still big. It's the pictures that got small." It's so good. I went a little Katharine Hepburn there.
A little bit.
That's my Norma Desmond. My Norma Desmond and my Katharine Hepburn are one and the same. It's the pictures that have gotten small. You can barely hear it as I mumble it out. But it's such a good line because it really establishes her as, I'm amazing. Everything else is awful.
100%, yeah.
But I have been consistently amazing, and people are going to see that again.
Yeah, and this like pattern of disillusionment is like apparent that like it's Joseph's like she's got like no idea, like, and it feels like he could probably say anything to her, and she's not going to listen, or potentially that what he could say may have dangerous consequences.
Yeah, but he decides rather than avoiding all of those dangerous consequences, he's going to just dive right in.
Yeah. He's going to be part of the show.
Yeah. He takes advantage of her. So essentially, he finds out that she's written a script that's supposed to be like her big comeback. And he decides that he'll pretend... Well, no, he doesn't think it's a good script.
No.
But he kind of leads her into believing it's her idea to hire him to edit and fix up the script.
To punch up the script, yeah.
Yeah. But then he actually does do the job. So there is a bit of a struggle to see, is he taking advantage of her throughout this film? Does there actually develop as like a bit of a connection between them? Like the whole time you're questioning, like, where does he sit?
Yeah, you're not really understanding sort of Joe's motivations about the whole thing. And then obviously sort of they're like when he's trying to leave and then he gets brought back in again, and that's sort of when the relationship escalates.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're really sort of unsure about where things are at, and I guess sort of what he wants out of the whole situation. It's really sort of unclear.
Yeah. I'm really distracted because I can hear trombone in the background. But just thought I'd put that there in case my face just glazes over. But also, if you can hear that through the recording, we can't do anything about it. So hopefully it'll just be some nice underscoring for us.
I feel like it fits the movie we're talking about. So
Yeah. And if it just seems like it cuts out, that's the way they're playing it. That's not poor editing on our behalf.
It's poor musicianship from our students.
That's it, yeah. So Joe sucks Norma Desmond in, but then she kind of sucks him in because
they're both
overnight,
sort of in this vortex, yeah.
Max ends up collecting all of his stuff and then moving him into the house without his permission.
Yep, it's like, hey, you're here now permanently, and you feel like, is he there? And this is when these sort of questions you're sort of asking is like, well, is he trapped there? Is he wanting to sort of, take refuge maybe from, the world that he's like sort of struggling to find his own part in at the same time. That's kind of like sort of the issue, I guess, that's sort of going on.
Well, and because he literally does spend all of his time there, and like more and more of his independence gets stripped away.
Yeah.
So originally he's playing bridge with her. I love the bridge scene because all of her friends he refers to as like her own personal waxwork, because they're all other silent movie stars from the era and real silent movie stars from the era. The one I recognized was Buster Keaton. We spoke about that. I didn't recognize the others, but I looked it up afterwards, and they were all playing themselves.
That's cool. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Buster Keaton, one of the most famous silent movie stars. Like, he's right up there with Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, and I think like in someone who probably is similar to Norma, is like struggles to sort of transition sort of outside that period.
Well, because his skill set was in his physicality. Like he had comedy in the way that he expressed himself, but he also did quite dramatic stunts and things, much like Charlie Chaplin as well.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to actually see him and recognize him and go, I see what they're going for here. She's surrounding herself with other celebrities from her time so that she can still live in her heyday.
Yeah, she's sort of, trying to preserve this bubble, basically.
Exactly right.
Have a bit of an echo chamber.
Almost in wax. Yes.
A lot of wax.
Oh, yeah, a lot of wax.
Good theme as well for my weekly watches.
Oh yeah.
And the favourites. I'm talking about wax.
Very, very much looking forward to it. But in addition to that, they also have their movie nights where they exclusively watch her in movies. And I love it. She's almost like miming along with it. And the projector shining behind her is so good. Like, she's still in the limelight.
Anytime she tries to find the light, basically. And particularly when then
figuratively and literally.
Literally, then particularly when they end up sort of back on the back lot of the studios. That's that whole sequence is probably it's up there with the best in the film.
It's really good, and he just indulges her through all of this. But he does start to feel the pinch when even more of his independence gets taken away, because the repo guys do eventually find him and take his car. So the only way he can travel around is like his Sunday drives with Norma.
And Max.
It's so bizarre. Like, those sequences make me feel uncomfortable, them going for a ride in the car together.
It just looks weird.
It does look weird. And I'm not just talking about the rear projection, you see. But no, it's just their dynamic together it's really bizarre. There's like a mother-son, but also a lover kind of vibe between them.
Yeah,
it's creepy.
It's a little bit unsettling.
Yes. And I say that, but then the age gap between Joe and Betty later on is probably even greater.
Yeah. So, like, relationship-wise across the film, there's some questions to be asked.
It was the style at the time.
It was the time.
Dating people that were far your senior. Or junior. Depending on what end. Junior? It's so topical.
Right there.
What's his name? Henry Jones Jr.
That's me. It's too early. We shouldn't be losing our mind just yet. But I really like that sequence. What is the purpose of that phone? It's like a limousine phone in the car to talk to Max, but it's not a limousine. It's not a stretch limousine. He's literally right in front of it. I would hear her clearer just talking than
over the phone.
I always like to envision, because we never see him pick up a phone. I like to envision she's picked up a phone, but is just talking to him normally. And he just indulges it.
I feel like it might be onto something.
That's like, because he indulges her through everything. Maybe she's picturing they are in a stretch limousine.
Or maybe she had a stretch limo and she's trying to keep up appearances of like...
That's it.
Yeah, who knows?
For sure. So... I really like how they show it kind of stage by stage, how he loses his independence.
Yeah.
Even the fact that the guest bedroom ends up getting some water damage and he has to move to the main house. So she's just pulling him in closer and closer.
Yep.
And it all culminates with the New Year's Eve party. A party he's expecting there to be a huge turnout, but it turns out it's just a party for them. So there's a big band, but she's just trying to woo him.
Yep.
And that's really uncomfortable.
Yep.
But I don't know why he wasn't expecting it. I mean, he says he was surprised and maybe he should have seen that she was making advances earlier. Yes, he should have seen it. She's clearly been obsessed with him in all of these other scenes. So
he's oblivious.
I do think that there's a sense of him like losing himself to it and letting it happen even though he knows better.
Yeah, I think like it turns out it's almost like something out of convenience for him, I guess. It's like, well, I'm here.
Yeah, I need the money.
Yep, I'll do whatever I need to do to basically sort of, get myself in Norma's life more and to stay around.
Yep. And when they're dancing too, I like that they show Max's reaction to it. And I was a little like, ooh, what's this? Like intrigued by it. He gives an expression and you don't know, like, is he worried because she's a bit mentally unstable? Does he have an affection for her, a fondness
she's jealous,
for her?
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's cool. And I like that they do insert those little details to make you kind of go, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then eventually we start to sort of work out exactly who Max is in regards to Norma's life.
One of the few actual plot twists and big reveals of the film. So he ends up leaving when she confesses her love for him. He's like, "Yep, I'm not having a bar of it." And
He's like, "Nah, bye."
She gives him the old psh, and then the eyes. But yeah, he's like, "All right, then I'm out of this. I'm out of this freak show." Takes the car, goes and crashes. What's the guy's name? Artie? I want to say it's Artie.
I think Artie, yeah.
He crashes Artie's party. Artie's party.
Artie.
Artie party. Ain't no party like an Artie party.
It's true.
So he crashes it and he's there and he runs into Betty again, who we now find out is dating Artie. But even though Artie's his good friend, doesn't stop him from cracking onto her hard. He's not subtle about it at all.
No, he's like, "Hey, Artie, I'm just gonna hit on your gal."
Yeah, and she's kind of like, even though she's like, "Oh, I love Artie," she just lets it happen and she kind of indulges it too. There's a real air of indulgence in this film. But I do like, again, the playful banter's back. She reintroduces herself as from the hurt feeling department. That's brilliant. It's so good. But then he's like, all right, I'm going to make a phone call, check in, see what's going on, get Max to bring my stuff over. Just a side note, and I'll find a screenshot of it. But when I was watching it last night, the girl that hands him the phone looks exactly like Ana de Armas.
Oh, really?
She's blonde, so maybe Ana de Armas playing Marilyn Monroe. But I was like, whoa.
Very.
The time-traveling actor.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah, doesn't it? So he calls in, but before he can get Max to deliver his stuff, Max reveals that Norma has attempted suicide. And we know this isn't actually the first time. So she's really struggled with the fact that she's yesterday's jam. Is that a reference you get?
Yeah, I haven't heard that reference in a while. It's a good one.
I'll put it right here.
It's like they're pally-wally when there's a problem with their printer, but once it's fixed,
they toss us away like yesterday's jam.
Yes! Yesterday's jam! That is what we are to them! Actually, you know what? That doesn't really work as a thing. Because jam lasts for ages. Because
of that, Max has been like really indulging her, sending her fan letters to make her happier so that she wouldn't do anything drastic. But now that Joe's walked out on her, she's attempted suicide again. So I was surprised at how much he responded to this.
Yeah, you think like for some of the characters, and you'd think, sort of leading up to this sort of moment that like maybe that's going to push him further away.
Yeah, but no,
he
races back to her. So we do see that he really cares for her. And look, I wasn't completely surprised that he cared. I mean, no one wants to hear that about another person. No. But it's what happens next that I was very surprised by. I thought he was going to go back. I thought he was going to like make her feel a little bit better about it. She gives him like 4 or 5 outs, and then he decides to mac on with her.
Yeah.
And it's that classic 50s kiss too. You know, the one where they're like,
it's
it's not even like a slow go in. It's just like a wham. They like slam their heads together, and it's like a big old like mush your face. It's a Harrison Ford kiss.
Very specific.
Yes, but go back. I'll put in a montage of Harrison Ford kissing people and he just mushes their face in.
What an interesting clip to put in.
Oh, Whittle is going to love it. But yeah, so they end up getting together and we instantly see that this is a real turning point in the film too, because everything about the house changes as well. So it's like, yep, they're a happy couple now. Like the pool now has water in it. He's swimming in it. All of the overgrown garden is being trimmed right back. So it's like, this is just their life now.
Yeah, like the sunlight's been brought back to the mansion and yeah.
Oh, so symbolic. Sunlight in her heart.
Not the sunset.
No. not the sunset. Well, the sun does set eventually for Joe.
On the Boulevard.
But I think there's a sense of him kind of just accepting that this is his life now. But we still get that begrudging frustration, especially when she puts on her live shows for him.
Oh, yeah.
I adore that scene.
And he's just like...
You ever do that for your partner? Just get up and do a little song and dance?
I don't know. Do you?
I put on my Charlie Chaplin mustache.
Twirling the cane. She's doing her best Charlie Chaplin and just sitting there and being like, okay.
Yeah. I tell you what it reminded me of. Are you a big Simpsons fan? The episode that's like The Graduate where Grandpa starts dating Marge's mum.
Yeah.
And he's doing the potato thing with the forks and kicking it up, and then they like give him a cease and desist because of the likeness of Charlie Chaplin. I was expecting them to walk in and give that cease and desist to Norma.
It is a painstakingly good impersonation.
It's pretty good. I love the little walk, the little waddling walk.
And the twirl. And
my understanding is Robert Downey Jr. based his entire portrayal of Charlie Chaplin on this one sequence of Norma doing it.
Really?
Yeah. True story.
There you go.
So Paramount ends up calling Norma and she makes the mistake of assuming they love my script, they're going to make my movie. So
and even then it's just like, no, if it's not Mr. DeMille, then I don't want to talk.
That's true.
You're going to hang up.
She's a bit of a diva about it, but then she decides to go in and visit Mr. DeMille in person with Joe. And when she gets there, we find out that DeMille hates the script. And it was, in fact, a different person from the studio that was calling because they saw her driving around in her car and they thought it would be a good car to use in another film that they're shooting on the lot.
Yeah.
And this is a really interesting scene because there were some things in it that I wasn't expecting. I didn't expect DeMille to be so nice. He really cares about her.
Because he starts working with her when she's like a child.
Yes.
So clearly there's sort of like a little bit of a familial, parental sort of relationship there. And he clearly cares about her and doesn't like want her to sort of, just rip the Band-Aid off and be like, don't know what you're talking about, I'm not seeing you or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's still very much like a respect for Norma there. There's other people on the set who recognize who she is, and that's like massive for her. They've got the person who's up in the gantry basically and shines the light on her again, sort of finding that spotlight. So then it was almost like hard to gauge. I was like, because watching the film was like, is this sort of only...
Do they love her? Do they not? Is it in her head?
Well, this is what I thought. I was half expecting them to be like turning around and she'd be like turning around to like a circle of nobody or like when Joe checks in with her, see, they love me. It's just like, who are you talking about?
I thought the exact same thing, but I think that that's really fascinating too because whether it is in her head, whether it's not, I think both work to make the film more interesting and more intricate and layered.
100%.
I like that we do get a bit of an explanation about Hollywood, like chewing you up and then spitting you out from DeMille as well. So he really sympathizes with her as a character. But also, if she is loved by a couple of people or known by a couple of people, that makes sense. It's like, it's not the majority, but the people still working in the industry still know the greats that came before them.
There's still a legacy there for her, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So while she's going through all of that, Joe ends up running into Betty, again on the lot. He has run into her one other time as well, and she's pitched this idea of them working together on one of his other scripts and kind of writing back and forth on that. But he's not interested. He's got his new life now. So he just goes and visits her and says, oh, look, you can do it, offers her some critique, and then gives her the rights to the film if she wants to use them.
Yep.
But she's pretty annoyed that he doesn't want to work with it.
Yeah, and this is sort of like, again, like about the relationship between her and Joe versus the relationship between her and Artie, because it's like...
Artie who, am I right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, clearly she's like pining for Joe in some way. So it's like, it's a bit unclear.
Well, it's almost like it's a love of the art too, right?
Yeah.
And we see that their relationship obviously does develop. He does end up coming back and working with her on the script, and they fall for each other over what's written on the page.
Yes.
It's like as they work closer together, they fall for each other because they're sneaking off at night to do it, but also the stories that they're writing about, they fall in love with each other's talent, essentially.
It's a pretty sort of nice coming together, but obviously it has repercussions.
Yeah, it does. And the reason he's able to do it too is because Norma, DeMille is nice, but he's too nice because he lets her leave that day thinking her film is still being made.
Yeah, that they're going to be working together again. It's just like, I think she says like, oh, the old team again.
Yeah, he's like, all right, crazy, catch you later.
And then as soon as she leaves, it's like, she's not allowed to come back here again.
Yeah.
You need to call the person who is like, and he's like, I'll get you 5 old cars or whatever it is. Basically, we do not talk to that person ever again. It's like, oh, okay.
No, but I thought it was more like, I'll get you the cars. Don't tell her that that's the reason you were calling her in the first place. Like, right. I think it's still more like a sparing of her feelings.
I feel like, I guess like his emotion changes though. I don't know. Like it said, like there's a little bit of an anger.
I mean, we don't know.
Indeed. For sure.
So she goes through all these beauty God, is that you?
Really good musical cue after.
Yeah. The jaunty ball, a jazz number. So she goes through all this beauty regime stuff.
Yeah, because she thinks she's like, she's back in the game.
Exactly.
So she's
early
get herself
nights
ready.
And she's got like her skin being pulled back, which is actually why I think for those Mrs. Doubtfire fans out there, when Robin Williams is going through the montage and he's got his like face being pulled back by like that, and he says, "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille."
Instant eye lift.
Wow. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Even though that is a misquote, the line is, "Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up." So, I don't know.
That's okay.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll let it slide.
I'll give Robin Williams a pass.
Yeah. Just this once.
Only once.
Just this once. Everybody gets one. Isn't that right, Spider-Man?
Everybody gets one. Tell him, Peter.
Apparently everybody gets one.
Bam! We're going to be doing the entire episode of the podcast with a jazzy number behind us. Just scatting over the top.
Talking about Sunset Boulevard.
Part de Cas. Anyway. Alright.
Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah. So, this is what allows Joe to do all of his sneaking out. And as their relationship develops, we get another 50s face smush and kiss.
A big old smosh.
There's a couple of weird bits of flirting here. I wrote it down. He said she smells like freshly laundered linen handkerchiefs.
Very specific. Hey, whatever floats your boat.
Nothing says sexy like freshly laundered linen handkerchiefs.
Oh, the best kind of handkerchiefs.
Well, they're my favorite.
More of a cotton poly blend myself.
Yeah, well, look, each to their own. But their ruse is up because Norma finds a version of their script and she ends up calling up Betty and telling her what's what. She says, Joe's been lying to you. But I like that when this happened, I was like, oh no, now she's going to be upset and Joe's not going to know why. But Joe just walks straight in and he's like, hey, none of that. Hand me that phone. And he's like, yeah, it's true. Everything she's saying is true. Come on over. I'll tell you the whole story.
I'll show you everything.
And I really liked that. I don't like the nonsense of miscommunication within film. So him seeing this play out, I was like, good. Betty comes on over and he tells her the story. He basically says, yeah, I'm a bit of a bad person. This is the story.
I've been two-timing.
But she's happy to let it slide. She's like, I don't want to hear it. Let's pretend you never said that.
Let's get out of here.
We'll run off. We'll live happily ever after. But this is probably the part where we actually do see his morals finally starting to shine through. At first we think, oh no, he just wants to stay with Norma. But he is telling Betty that he wants to stay with Norma because he thinks Betty can do better. He thinks she deserves better, and he has to be there to kind of fix the whole Norma situation, and then he's going to skedaddle on that situation. So he doesn't want to do it for any benefit of himself. He's just looking out for Betty and wants a better life for her. Yep. A Betty life for her.
A Betty life.
So she leaves, and then he goes to Norma, and he's like, I'm packing my bags. You're crazy. I'm out of here. And she's like, whoa. I got me a gun. My description of the film is very much clashing with the fact that I actually thought the dialogue in it was super poetic. So my condensed description of it,
It's not doing justice.
I got a gun here, you see? It really isn't doing it justice.
That's the line verbatim.
I got a gun here, you see? But no, there are some really, really poetic moments in the film. Like, there were heaps of good lines. I loved it when he was talking about, I don't know if it was his manager or the person at Paramount, where you don't have to explain how poor you are. Oh, it's the guy at the garage across the road. It's
That's
like,
right, yeah.
He'd just look at your heels and know the score. Like, it's so good. And then later on when he's talking about indulging Norma, and he says, you don't wake a sleepwalker. Like, all this
That one's
kind
good,
of,
yeah, I like
these
that
metaphors for how he goes through his life. But the reason I bring it up now is we get 2 cracker lines in this final scene. So the first one is when she threatens to kill herself, and he says, you'd be killing yourself to an empty house.
That's cold.
Being so sympathetic, and then he's just like, oh, I'm done with this. But I also like the idea of it being an empty house, but also an empty house as in like the theater. Like, no one turned
Nice.
up to your show, it's an empty house.
Like, this performance is for no one.
Yeah.
Because then you've got basically him, not only the fact that Norma's got the gun, but he basically spills the beans on what's actually happened. Like, in terms of, there is no movie, they wanted your car.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, but the fans are still laughing. He's like, no, Max was writing that for you. And then he's basically still doubling down. It's like, she's still the grandest dame, or I forget the specific line. Because then prior to that, we work out that Max is not just like a person working in her house.
Yes.
That Max was married to her.
Yeah, and her manager.
Yeah.
So, or director.
The director.
Yeah. But it's like, after, for a while, everything playing out as you think, he's like, and by the way, I was a director, and you're like, whoa, plot twist. And then he's like, and I was her husband.
I was married to her too.
So yeah, you do really get this sense that he's just been like pumping up her ego this entire time because he loved her, the version of her from back in the day. And like, it's almost like they're both on this journey of delusion together.
Delusions!
Because even he gets like the opportunity, basically, like, no, like, Joe's right. Like, I'm really sorry I did this, but it's time to basically break this illusion. But he's like, no, I'm still keeping this up sort of until the end. Yeah,
and even here when Joe does try and shatter the glass, he says there's nothing tragic about being 50 unless you're pretending to be 25.
Yeah.
So good.
That's good stuff.
It really is, but she can't take it anymore. So as he tries to leave, bang, bang, she shoots him down.
Bang, bang, bang. 3 bangs.
Oh, 3 bangs, I forgot.
Triple bang.
Triple bang. We hear it at the start, we hear it at the end. And that shot where he's in the pool, I don't know if it is at the end. I think it actually is from the opening, where the camera's in the water and he's floating above it.
That's good.
What a great shot. Really, really cool. And so you think, okay, that's it. It's over. He's dead. That's what the whole story was leading to. But the best part of the film is yet to come. And we get this epilogue in her bedroom with cops there, with reporters around, and they're just kind of asking her questions, but she's still in this delusional state. I don't know
Probably
if she's like
the
brushing
most
her hair.
delusion like she's been through like the whole film.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's just done something traumatic, so it's probably just tipped her over the edge a little bit. And she hears about the reporters being there, and she's like, are the cameras here? And Max is like, yes. Everyone go along. And he kind of thinks we can give her one more nice moment, but also we can lead her downstairs, we can help the cops. So everyone just indulges her as she comes out. And it's a really nice moment where Max becomes her director again at the bottom of the staircase and kind of leads her down. And the music swells, and it's just this long take of her walking down the stairs. It's awesome. Really good. The wide eyes are going as she comes down, and she gets down and delivers this brilliant speech. Not part of the film, but almost like a thank you, for bringing me back. They love me. They really love me. Sally Fields accepting her award at the Academy Awards. That's what it feels like.
And I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now, you like me.
that's when it ends with the, all right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Yep. I think, yeah, it's a really good way to finish up the film.
Yeah, I really liked this. I was surprised that I liked it because, as I said, a lot of elements of noir with twists and turns and mystery that I usually flock to noirs for weren't there. But I just thought the dialogue was brilliant. The performances were great. I was engrossed. And there's something really charming about this era of film for me.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll talk a little bit more about sort of different films from the decade, but a little teaser. But yeah, because like this is not an era of filmmaking that I have spent the most amount of time with. There are certainly films that I have watched from this time period that I've really enjoyed, but I wouldn't say like it's something I have a great amount of knowledge of all the time. And there's certainly parts of this film that, you know, I maybe struggled with a little bit, and some of those things you talked about sort of, I don't know, I maybe wanted a couple more twists and turns for it to go, but in terms of like, you know, performances, how sharp the dialogue was, I really like the Hollywood setting and films that sort of take place in their own industry.
I mean, I barely heard the bell with all this music going on.
Films that, you know, that take place in their own industry, and I think that, yeah, it's a really sort of kind of like tragic tale at the end of the day, and I think that's sort of balancing a lot of these sort of tragic sort of, you know, quite, you know, elements of dread with like some pretty dark comedy right throughout the film. I think, yeah, it ended up being like a pretty unique sort of concoction, I guess, and like tonally for a film. So I really enjoyed that part of it. So yeah.
Awesome.
It was good. Like you said, this is a rare time on the podcast where this is a film for Film Club that we both hadn't seen.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen very often. So
I forgot to mention too, as much shit as we give Ethan, this was his recommendation and it was a good one. I really appreciate when we can do something a little bit different in Film Club, even if it doesn't grab everyone. I like the idea of introducing students to older films and showing them that just because it's older, just because it's in black and white, just because it's in 4:3 ratio, doesn't mean it's not going to be a good film. So hopefully in our later segment, we can get a few more people on board with older films as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. Shall we move on to weekly watches?
We shall.
Weekly watches. Weekly watches.
As I forewarned, this is a stacked week for me in particular. I watched 12 movies and a TV series this week. It was a biggin. But even though I'm going to mention all of the names, I'm going to kind of chunk them in categories so that I can race through them. So I'm going to kick things off with the bad ones. So we got Retribution, All Fun and Games, Black Demon, and Unfrosted. So Retribution is your classic Liam Neeson gets a phone call and they're like, do this or we'll kill your family. Or you.
He's made a couple of those.
He has so many of those. And usually I'm on board. I was like, yeah, I could go another of these.
Really?
But I think the concept is too tired now. You don't like any of them?
Taken's okay.
To be honest, my favorite is actually the one he did on a train, but I can't remember what it's called now. That's how much I liked it. But yeah.
Non-stop or something like that?
Non-stop, that's it. No, that's the one on the plane. He's done a lot of these. That one he's texting, but another one... This is just so familiar for him. It is getting ridiculous. So the concept's getting tired, and there was just nothing like... I didn't buy the bad guy's motivations in it. It was very weak.
Sounded paid by the numbers a little bit.
Yeah. But all fun and games. So the thing that drew me to this were actors Asa Butterfield from Sex Education and Hugo, and also Natalia Dyer from Stranger Things. Yeah. And I saw them and I was like, ooh, horror film, these two? Yes, please.
And no.
No, thanks. Yeah. It's a classic kind of possession story.
Okay.
And then they're playing a game as part of the possession. But none of the action set pieces, like the stalking, the hunting, felt like they really utilized the sets that they had.
Yep.
And yeah, the demon aspects were weak. Like I didn't care about the backstory to the demon. But above all, the thing that was the worst was inconsistent sound levels. So jump scares were deafening. And the dialogue and in fact the rest of the film was just so quiet. So you had to make a choice early on. Do I want to go deaf every time there's a jump scare or do I not really want to be able to hear the dialogue? In the end, that's the one I opted for, but it made for a very painful watch.
Yeah. That's a bit of a shame.
It really is. Moving on, Black Demon, shark movie.
Yeah.
I love a good shark movie. I even love a bad shark movie, but this one somehow fell between the middle of them and just didn't work for me.
Oh, okay.
Big issue, supernatural elements with the shark.
We don't... Sharks are spooky
They
by
are.
themselves, but
They
they
are.
don't need to be more spooky.
They traded in hunting down people for people having like delusions and like seeing visions and stuff. It was weird. It was weird, very strange.
Okay.
And the acting was awful. Even though like Josh Lucas is a pretty well established actor. Like I wouldn't say he's in amazing films, but he's got
solid.
some good films to his name. So I did wonder if it was a bit of a Marky Mark kind of, he knows he's in a bad film, is he acting bad on purpose kind of situation.
Okay.
What? No.
But last one, Unfrosted, the new Jerry Seinfeld film on Netflix. It wasn't even awful. It just wasn't funny. And for a comedy, that's kind of integral. So it really felt like Jerry got called in all the favors from all his friends, got a bunch of really big names in comedy, and then they all forgot to tell jokes. That's what it feels like to me. So
Ouch.
I really like the aesthetic, the 60s aesthetic. I like the idea of having the racing to make the Pop-Tart as like a space race metaphor.
Yep.
But yeah, it wasn't
Didn't
funny.
land.
It wasn't funny. Anyway, they're my bads.
Okay.
Over to you.
I'll kick off with, I only had a really solitary bad film. It was Smile. From 2022, I
More like
believe.
frown, am I right?
Am I right? That's an upside down smile. But basically, this film, it was okay. I mean,
Was it though?
It was okay. I think I'm just getting a little bit over the current trend of horror movies where they're positioning their final girls to always have like a backstory of some particular trauma. It seems to be much like a kind of stereotype.
That is a staple of the final girl.
But particularly at the moment, I think it
Yeah.
seems to be a big thing, which I like, and some of them are told really well, but some of them are just can be quite sort of like...
Some of them are Smile.
Yeah. There's parts of this film I really like Carl Gardner's in the film, and I think he's a really good actor. Old Barry Allen from Smallville.
Oh, yeah.
I actually really like the opening, like really before the credits start rolling, when the first sort of character basically ends up coming in to see our protagonist, and then ends up, taking their own life. And I thought that part, that sort of set the film up like quite well. But then there's just the rest of it. I was like, yeah, it just didn't really land for me.
It's interesting you say that with the protagonist because, the protagonist from the opening.
Because that's from the short.
From the short film.
Yeah.
And I find her character, like you, far more compelling than the lead actress. So, I wish that the film had centered around her, but yeah.
It didn't.
No.
Can I talk about a good film that I like?
Please.
A very rare occasion
You may.
where I've actually been able to go to the cinemas a couple of times. So I'll talk about the non-spooky film that I saw, though granted there are elements of this film that are quite legitimately terrifying. And it's Civil War by Alex Garland's new film. So focuses on like a dystopian narrative where there has been another civil war in America where California and Texas have seceded from the rest of the US after President Nick Offerman has got a third term in the White House. And the film sort of focuses on Kristen Dunst, who's a photojournalist, particularly like a war photographer. And she's brilliant. Like I haven't seen her like in much like lately, but she's really good.
Was brand new.
Exactly right. The war's basically coming to an end. That the Western forces, the WF, are going to win the war, and what they need to get, and it's the big scoop basically, is the finish of the war and probably the president getting killed. So or to interview him before this happens. So they want to get to Washington. It's basically them sort of going through this like sort of dystopian landscape, but it really drops you in the middle and makes you feel like a bystander in the action scenes,
Okay, cool.
which I really enjoy. And then there's some like quite a lot of scenes of tension as like people are sort of splitting off and doing their own thing. They're not really sort of part of the Western forces, but they're really sort of part of they're basically running their own ship in this like new America. And Kirsten Dunst's husband, Jesse Plemons, is in it, and I don't really want to talk about this scene too much in case you want to go see the movie, but this scene is basically worth the price of admission.
Wow.
Jesse Plemons is quite legitimately terrifying.
Alrighty, my next category, rewatches. So confess. What?
What are you confessing?
Fuck again.
I confess, Amanda.
So
Red
confess,
October.
Fletch.
That's hard.
I'm gonna do a little debrief now that I've finished all the Star Wars again, and the Lego Movie 2, the second part. It's such a good tagline. So first of all, confess, Fletch. John Hamm film based on the Chevy Chase series. I really like the original films, and John Hamm seamlessly slips into the role. So he's a little bit goofy, but he's pretty charming. He's a writer, but he does like a bit of investigative stuff as well on the side. And he comes home and someone's dead in his house. And that's pretty much how it kind of goes. There's a similar plot to the original Chevy Chase movie. He's hired for a job, and then someone ends up dying while he's on the job. Anyway, John Hamm is just so good. He's charismatic. I really hope they're going to bring out more of these. I know there were plans for it at some stage, but yeah, I don't know if that's still the case. But yeah, definitely worth a watch.
Cool.
Next one, Star Wars results. So I just want to clarify, my ranking has shifted a little from when we actually did Star Wars, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I am here to talk about the fact that I just enjoyed the sequel trilogy rewatch far more than I thought I would. I was bitterly disappointed when I finished The Rise of Skywalker, and there were still some very, very disappointing and odd choices in that film.
Yep.
But I got to the end of it and I was like, that was all right. I shouldn't have gone this long being like, nah, I'm not watching it again.
Can't do it.
Knowing what was coming, it really lessened the blow of some of that disappointment. But I also had a fondness for things that even stuff we talked about, like the Han Solo Force Ghost thing.
Yeah, that seems good.
He's not a Force Ghost.
He's
like a memory. And so I could kind of justify things a little bit more, whether I was doing that in my head or whether the film itself did it for me. So there are big issues with it still, but I enjoyed it more.
You found some stuff. Okay.
For sure. But the last one is the Lego Movie 2. Again, a rewatch for me, but after we'd been talking Lego Batman, I was like, I'm in the mood for more Lego. And so I watched it again. Definitely not as good as the first Lego Movie. I still really encourage you to watch the first one. But
not as much as
a bit of fun.
Okay.
Well, you could tell a lot of the actors had kind of dropped out, and so there are some new roles, some double up on Chris Pratt voices, because he's not voicing enough animated characters at the moment. But it's still a lot of fun, and still all of those classic gags of the real world versus the Lego world. And it does jump between the two of them more in this film than it does the original. And they have this song in it, much like the Everything is Awesome song from the first film. They have this song called This Song's Gonna Get Stuck Inside Your Head. And my God, does it. Like, it's not a particularly good song, but it's kind of catchy.
It worms its way in there.
It really does. So I'll put a clip of that in here.
I'll save my most recent cinema experience till last, but I did watch surprisingly, I watched another horror film.
That's not like you.
Yeah, I know, crazy. And I watched a film from 2019 called Haunt. So it's directed by the people who wrote A Quiet Place.
Yep.
Pretty sort of like straight up slasher film.
I don't know if I know this.
So basically it stars a group of teenagers who, some of them you're pretty keen to see die pretty quickly.
I mean, that's a staple of slasher.
Classic. Sort of the main character, Harper, she's getting possessive sort of text messages and like communication coming from her boyfriend. It looks like she's like pretty keen to sort of split things off there. But they end up going to a Halloween party and then leave pretty quickly. What they're keen to do is try to maybe find a bit of a haunted house. So they sort of pull over, and then eventually a magical little neon light comes on saying, haunted house this way.
Oh.
So crazy. And then they end up going into the haunted house. And
imagine if they didn't.
Yeah.
How anticlimactic would that be?
Yeah, I'm good.
Not tonight.
Credits. Imagine. But yeah, so like... Basically, I mean, I like haunted houses. I went to Halloween Horror Nights last year when I was in America. I like all that sort of thing, and I like the sort of set design of this film. The fact that it is sort of like taking place inside this like warehouse that has got very clear sort of different physical environments, and then you've got these different sort of like the performers are wearing different masks and everything like that, and basically you work out that they are just killing people in there for real. And then they've just got to try to get out of there, and it's probably there's nothing too new in this film.
Okay,
but
sounds like a bit of fun.
But it's fun, and sometimes it's all I want.
You're gonna have a good time.
Yep.
I got 2 more. My next one is Dream Scenario, the
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage film. So I think this is a bold statement.
Okay.
I think this might be, look, we'll say one of, if not, Nicolas Cage's best performance. He's incredible in it.
Yep.
So he plays a very self-conscious character, and my favorite sequences are the ones where he's like subtly taking digs at himself so that someone else will jump in and be like, no, but they never do.
He's waiting for backup that never comes.
Yeah.
From his family members.
It's
from people he deals with.
Compelling to watch though. So the premise is that he is a professor, and all of a sudden there's this phenomenon in the world where people start seeing him in their dreams. And so he becomes famous pretty much overnight, but then the dreams take a very dark turn. For me, when the premise was established, I was like, this is cool. I am on board. This is going to be great. But I was like, how are they going to wrap this up? Like, where's it going to go? And I don't know that they nailed that part.
The landing doesn't quite stick.
I would say the final third of the film is quite weak. And even though the final sequence itself is quite nice, I still think they set up some things that don't fully get a satisfying resolution. I don't necessarily need an explanation for why the phenomenon happened, but if you're using it as a metaphor, I'd kind of like to know what that is, because I still don't think on a symbolic level that's even super clear.
No, that's fair. I think it leaves a few threads sort of hanging a little bit.
Yeah, like there's definitely stuff where you go, oh, that's interesting. I see what you're doing there, but there's just other aspects of the film where I'm like, oh, okay, we're never going to explore that further, or...
Nope.
And there's this new technology that's invented towards the end of the film that feels like it exists in a completely different movie.
Yeah, that part of it I don't really like. When you talked about sort of like the fact that the dreams turned into nightmares, I really expected the film to maybe start to go down like more of a horrific pathway.
Yeah, so
and
did
I was sort of on board with that. And I was like, I can kind of see how this could go into like a bit of horror territory.
Almost like a Freddy Krueger-esque.
Yeah. I mean, Nick Cage's Freddy Krueger. Jeez, that's an image. The landing wasn't quite stuck. They could have tied things and had some slightly better resolution in places. But there's parts of this I really enjoy. Nick Cage is really good. Michael Cera is like really, really good.
We've had a lot of appreciation for Michael Cera lately.
He's like in that agency setting and like sort of how uncomfortable that is and like what they're trying to push and everything.
When
and
he turns around and starts again, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So good.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was a good film, and like you said, I feel like I feel like the dialogue around Nick Cage, I think like has very much morphed to he's like crushing it at the moment. Some would argue he's been crushing it for a very long time. But I think
I'd be one of those people.
Same, but I think like the appreciation for some of his films, I think, is really sort of coming around for like recognizing like the energy and commitment he has to his performances is seen as it's a celebrated thing rather than something that's like sort of sort of mocked. So yeah, I really like Dream Scenario. It's good.
Nice. One more?
Yeah, I do. And a film I'd been wanting to see for a while. Finally got around to it, and it was Late Night with the Devil. And
best film of 2024 so far.
Correct. It's pretty amazing.
It's really good.
I really enjoyed the sort of found footage, like 70s setting that we have here. I wasn't aware that I thought it was just going to be that. I didn't know that they would have like the sort of behind the scenes footage and stuff. And I'm like, that's really good. The sort of the way they like set up the cult and everything, that's pretty full on.
Oh yeah.
stylistically, it looks brilliant. Really good performances across the board. Practical effects are so good, so good. And yeah, and I know this is still a film that's, obviously still out there, and I want people to go see it, so I won't really unpack it too much. Basically, he's trying to sort of resurrect his failing TV show. To do so, for a specific Halloween episode, he brings on a paranormal psychologist, and the subject of this person's book, who is basically being possessed by a demon. And then they want to try to basically unpack that a little bit more and interview the demon, and things don't go very well. They don't go well prior to this happening, and then they really don't go well.
Really don't go well.
But yeah,
it's a great effect for the audience.
Yeah. Just go see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And support Australian filmmakers as well.
Always. I'm not going to talk about my TV show, but I do have one more film or film series to talk about, and that's Mad Max. So
he's so mad.
He's so mad. To be honest, he's pretty tame in the first one. He's pretty tame in a lot of them. I would say he's mad in Fury Road, maybe, exclusively.
Yeah, he's got the fury.
He sure
and
does.
the road.
And the different body. So essentially, he's got a few mentions this pod, but Ethan...
It's all over the pod.
...was desperate to get me to watch Mad Max. And I finally caved and I said, look, I will. I haven't seen it before. Even though I'm not super excited to see it, you're speaking so highly of it, I'll go check it out. And I watched the first one and was very pleasantly surprised. I really loved it. I was like, this is not what I was expecting at all. Didn't feel nearly as post-apocalyptic as I was expecting. And that's because it's not really. I mean, things have gone a little downhill, but the apocalypse happens between film 1 and film 2. So the first film felt more like a thrilling suspense film about a gang that is terrorizing this family. I mean, terrorizing everywhere, but particularly this family. And that was really compelling. I really loved it. Then we move on to Mad Max 2, and I was like, this is what I wasn't looking forward to. And I will say, Mad Max 2 is good. It is a good film, but everyone says that Mad Max 2 is the better of those two. Everyone loves Mad Max 2.
You disagree?
I disagree wholeheartedly because I just think the first one is more compelling. I like the characters more. Once we start getting to the wasteland, the characters are all erratic and weird, and you don't necessarily care about any of them. So if they die, I'm like, who cares? It's just wackos smashing cars into each other. The stunts in the second one, great. Really good. And those action sequences are super compelling because they're real and they're dangerous. And you're like, how did someone not die? But yeah, the characters themselves just didn't draw me in nearly as much. But it was still significantly better than Beyond Thunderdome. I really didn't like. I would go as far as to say I hated Beyond Thunderdome. It has even weirder characters at the beginning, and then we have a whole sequence that feels like it's Peter Pan instead of the Wasteland, and none of the characters do anything for me. The action set pieces have been watered down. It's almost like they've tried to make it a more family-friendly movie. And even the Thunderdome itself is like weird bungee cord thing. None of it really worked for me.
Except
Tina Turner's song, We Don't Need Another Hero.
We don't need another hero.
We don't need another way home.
Well, I would have argued we don't need another Mad Max, but they made it anyway.
George Miller was like, nah.
No, we do. Well, I found out recently, because I was like, Tina Turner's hair looks so weird in this. Obviously, she's wearing a wig, but she looks bald because her hairline starts like back here. To fit the wig on, she shaved her head for the film.
That's pretty badass.
I think all actors commit to their look for these movies. Like, I know Mel Gibson cut his own hair to look disheveled. Like, heaps of other people have shaved their heads. And yeah, it's a crazy, crazy film. But we move on to the main feature, Mad Max Fury Road. This was the one that Ethan was like, when you get to this, you're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. And let me just clarify. I really liked it. I did really like it. But it had one major flaw. And unfortunately, that flaw was consistent throughout the film.
You talking about
I'm talking about the old undercranking. So they change the frame rate around in the film because at certain times they want to speed things up or slow things down. And I love the logic behind it. There's an interview with George Miller where he explains if a sequence is too easy to understand, we speed it up so that it's more fast-paced. If it's harder to understand and you need to take more time to process things, we slow it down. That, in theory, is great. But what it does when you're watching it is things end up just looking really cartoonish and goofy. A lot of the stuff, and very topical for today's film, look like they're from a silent film, that era of films where people are like just jutting around like this. The times where they're jumping, it's super noticeable because gravity can't be faked with that sort of stuff. So when someone jumps and they land a lot quicker than they should, it really looks silly. Like it looks like it needs a sound effect behind it going like boing as they bounce around. So the reason that was so disappointing was because the action set pieces, the cinematography,
pretty incredible.
Beautiful, stunning. And so it really took away from that for me that they were doing this effect.
Took me out of it,
yeah, like if I could watch it again without that, my enjoyment of it would be through the roof. Like it was a really good film, but unfortunately that was laid all the way throughout. Not just the action sequences, but in dialogue sequences, it's there too sometimes, which is weird as well because you're hearing the dialogue normally, but you're watching people speak faster. It's odd. It's really odd. But yeah, so that's the end of my weekly watches.
Cool.
Shall we move on to our new segment, 5 favorites?
We shall.
We got 5 favorites. Above all else. We got 5 favorites. We think are top shelf.
Alrighty, so essentially how this new segment works is we pick a category and then Boylan and I are going to pick our top 5 things from that category. So I guess it's a little like Rival Rankings, but the difference here is that in Rival Rankings, we're taking a definitive list of a series of films and we're seeing how our rankings of them stack up. But in this, for 5 favorites, we might have a completely different 5 favorites based on the topic we pick. And the topic can be far more broad than Rival Rankings. So we could do things like best movie quotes, top final girls from a slasher film.
That'd be a good one.
Ultimate dramatic deaths in film. But yeah, like the possibilities are endless.
Truly.
But today,
being a bit more specific. Yeah.
Yes, we are being very topical, and we're going to do our top 5 films of the 50s.
The 50s.
We might have a little crossover here, and part of the reason for that is that when I first pitched this to you, you went, I don't know if I've seen 5 films from the 50s.
It was true.
But once we started talking, you were like, actually, no, I probably have. And my understanding is you've done a couple of rewatches this week?
Yes, I have.
Beautiful. Well, I might kick things off.
Go for it.
So my number 5 position is a Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin film. It is called Partners. So I'm a big Jerry Lewis fan. My dad introduced me to him. I watched all of his films growing up. I was particularly partial to the original Nutty Professor, but a lot of Jerry Lewis's solo career is actually 60s, not 50s. So I looked back and I was like, oh, there's probably a couple in the mix. And then I realized most of the ones that he did, possibly all of the ones that he did with Dean Martin, were actually in the 50s, so late 50s. So this one was 1956. I adore this film. It's essentially about both Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin play their dads in the opening, and then they die on the ranch.
Okay.
So they're cowboys. They work together on a farming ranch, and then they die in a big shootout, and it's very dramatic. And then we cut to when their sons are grown up, and Dean Martin has been living on the ranch the entire time, but Jerry Lewis, his mum took him to the city. So he grew up as a city boy, but he's always wanted to be a cowboy. And so somehow these guys are brought back together, and Jerry Lewis ends up going out to the West, and through sheer bumbling buffoonery, he ends up becoming like the new sheriff because no one wants to take on the responsibility because there's all these shootouts and outlaws and stuff. And so, yeah, he like rises to the top very, very quickly.
Okay.
And so the two of them end up, like their dads, having to kind of take on these outlaws and save the town.
That's cool.
It's really fun. Like I love most of Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin's stuff. I mean, there are some films that are a little bit slower, but they have a really good balance. Jerry Lewis being really quirky and comical and very physical in his comedy. Obviously, that crazy Jerry Lewis pretty lady type voice is very present in a lot of his characters too. But Dean Martin then is the suave singer. He often is the one that has the romantic interest. So it's a cool kind of balance between them. And I think possibly this was the film, one of their last films they did together before they had a bit of a falling out. They ended up like rekindling their friendship later on, but I think they kind of grated on each other's nerves. Hence, Jerry Lewis going off and having a whole solo career afterwards.
So how you been?
You know, it seems like we haven't seen each other for 20 years.
Well, you know, there was all those rumors about our breaking up, and then when I started the show and you weren't here, I believed it.
But that's my number 5, Partners.
Partners, okay. I will say that my 5 aren't really in a particular order.
Not
as well as
really
favoritism.
mine either.
Okay, cool.
Like
Right.
maybe,
like a little
but
bit. Okay.
Yeah.
The first film I will talk about is A Bucket of Blood, which is a Roger Corman film. Thought it'd be good to talk about a Roger Corman film. He passed away a couple of weeks ago. Really someone who sort of champions sort of like, B movies and this particular sort of genre that I always really like. He's like a pretty good sort of mentor and sort of inspiration for like a lot of young filmmakers. So Bucket of Blood stars Dick Miller.
Slippery Dick Miller.
Yep. So basically the whole film is it's kind of a horror movie, but it's also a bit of a dark comedy as well. There's
good balance. I like that.
There's like the ensemble characters are genuinely the lines and the dialogue is just like quite hilarious. Essentially, Dick Miller is like working at this cafe where it's like a beatnik sort of time when there's like lots of artists sort of hanging around, and he wants to sort of be in the mix. He's very awkward, but he wants to be popular. He wants to, talk to the girls and all that sort of stuff. And basically what ends up happening is that the cat has gone into the wall somehow, and he accidentally kills the cat. By trying to carve out the wall, he stabs the cat.
Amazing.
And so then what he does is that to try to basically cover his tracks, he puts the cat in clay and makes it a piece of art. And everyone loves the artwork. So then sort of, basically hypnotized by this newfound fame, he then basically what he feels like he needs to do is start adding to his collection, and then ends up killing people and putting them in clay.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so Bucket of Blood, worth a watch. I think it's a really fun sort of like horror comedy where Dick Miller's brilliant in the film.
That's got a real Little Shop of Horrors quality to it, where it's like
same filmmaker.
Yeah, well, he accidentally kills someone and then realizes, to keep up the stardom, I need to keep doing this.
Yep.
Wow. Recycled ideas, eh?
Exactly.
My number 4 is one on your list as well. It's the first of 2 Hitchcock films that I have. Vertigo, I believe it's on your list.
It is.
So
let's talk about Vertigo.
For the longest of times, Vertigo was ranked as my number 1 Hitchcock film.
Not anymore.
I've made a last-minute change, but my number 1 is obviously on this list as well. But this one, we've got Jimmy Stewart.
Look at
that. There's a wheelchair up there in that window there. He's just so captivating. So in the opening of the film, whilst chasing a criminal as a police officer, he ends up developing, they call it vertigo, but it's not even really vertigo. It's just a fear of heights.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, whoops. Vertigo sounds cooler. Imagine if the movie was called Hitchcock Presents
Fear of Heights. Starring Jimmy Stewart.
But the cinematography in this, the color in this film is incredible. If you describe this film, a lot of it is him just driving around following a person.
But it looks good.
That doesn't sound that compelling, but it really is, and especially the last, third of the film. He kind of develops obsessions for her. Yeah. As a result of that, then gets kind of brought into this complicated web.
Yep.
But yeah, it's good performances. The music in particular.
Bernard Herrmann's score is really good.
His dream sequence is haunting. Really, really good. And also just the imagery of the bell tower as well.
That nightmare sequence is like spoofed in like a lot of things in Toy Story 2.
For sure.
Yeah, which is really good. You get a Soul Bass title sequence as well, which is always like a really good thing for me that I enjoy. Dolly zooms, this is like sort of when it really becomes a big thing.
So. Dolly zoom is like unofficially known as the vertigo effect. Yeah. So we've explained it before on the podcast, but a dolly zoom essentially when you track the camera backwards on a dolly while zooming forwards, or flip that, vice versa, and it kind of warps the image. I'll put in a couple of examples. Vertigo, Jaws is another good one. But yeah, it's a really cool effect. Even though this wasn't the first time that it was done, people often state that this is the film that popularized the effect.
Yeah.
Cool. Your number 3.
Yeah, so obviously Vertigo is on my list. I will have another Hitchcock film as well, like you, to talk about, but I'll shift things to the animated vein and talk about one of my... I really could have gone with 2 options here. I mean, technically I could just talk about both of them if I really want to.
Just talk about animation.
That's fine, but there's a couple of my favourite Disney films that came out in
Lots
the 50s.
of Disney classics in the 50s.
Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan are 2 of my favourite Disney films of all time. Although there's lots of stuff from Lewis Carroll's book that isn't in this movie. There's we've talked about the Whoopi Goldberg Cheshire Cat, the classic Alice in Wonderland version.
Just about the only good thing from that Alice in Wonderland podcast, I reckon. References to other things.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But this animated version of the film, I think they do a pretty good job sort of bringing like Carol's world to life. And yeah, it's one of my favorite stories. Very much like how Peter Pan is. I really like pretty much all versions of Peter Pan. Hook's one of my favorite movies of all time. So, but the animated version is it's just a classic story. I think there's obviously parts of Peter Pan that have aged dreadfully, but the outside of that, I still think it's still, I think, one of Disney's better films. I know that's not always the most popular opinion, but those 2 films I have a really great affinity for, particularly their stories, and I think they look pretty good, particularly Alice in Wonderland.
Nice.
Yeah.
My number 3 is my other Hitchcock and my favorite Hitchcock, North by Northwest.
Okay.
So for regular listeners, this won't be any surprise. It's one of the longest podcasts we've done, because Witz and I were just gushing about how much we loved it.
Yep.
I love Cary Grant in general. I think that the film has some really cool twists and turns. I mean, one of my favorite films of all time is another Cary Grant film called Charade. Again, gotten lots of mentions on the podcast before. It was really rewatching it for the pod and talking about all of those intricate details that made me realize that this is my favorite Hitchcock.
Okay.
I have 4 Hitchcock posters hanging in my kitchen.
Fair.
North by Northwest, Vertigo, Psycho, and Rear Window.
Okay.
And I think aesthetically they look really cool as decorations, but they're just such staples of incredible filmmaking. And this one in particular, the score, the plot, the performances, and the twists and turns, as I said, there's another film on my list that has a really intricate plot, and that to me is such a strength of a film of this era.
Yep.
Really clever storytelling, because
obviously
they're not relying on things these days like special effects and clearer picture quality, but also the way that they use camera. A lot of the shots in these are like longer takes, and so you're not looking at it as stylistically in terms of how they operate camera, but instead you're like, well, there's probably more intricate storytelling. They're not churning them out. They're taking the time to write these really detailed plots. So yeah, North by Northwest, definitely in my 5 favorites from the 50s.
Nice. I'll save my Hitchcock one till last. But the next film I was going to talk about, I had to get a horror film in there. Another horror film.
It wasn't.
This horror comedy is what really Bucket of Blood. This is probably closer to more of a horror film.
See, even as you were describing Bucket of Blood, I was like, this sounds like this next film.
And it does. That's what I'm talking about. We've got a lot of placing things inside other substances. And we've got...
It's the Russian doll of podcasts.
It truly is. And the doll is opened up to give you House of Wax. Not the 2005, 3
Chad
film.
Michael Murray.
Yeah, and
Paris Hilton.
Not that one. I'm talking about the 50s. And this one has got Vincent Price in it, which is always a good thing. This I didn't realize actually at the time that Price actually wasn't getting as much stuff, I think, sort of like prior to this film coming out, and this really helped him sort of like kick on for like a later stage of his career. So that's good
this
to know.
put him on the map.
Yeah, so...
he was able to jack up his Vincent Price.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
I feel like you used to have more fondness for my puns.
No, I think that it's not bad. I just reckon you had some better ones.
What's happened to
the stand?
He's done it. Actually, yeah, that's usually me saying that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
About
myself. Yeah.
But House of Wax basically has like a wax museum, but he doesn't really want to go towards the macabre, towards the horror. He's just like wanting to recreate sort of a lot of historical scenes, and he has like a great affinity for his work. Basically what happens is he's trying to partner up with somebody who has a better appreciation for his work compared to his current business partner. And then that person's like, yeah, cool, I'm happy to partner up, but in 3 months, because I'm going overseas, I've got to be back. And that's not quick enough of a time, basically, for Price's current business partner, who wants to make another business deal. Right. And so he says, well, how we can make some money is if we basically burn everything, and we'll get $12,500 each. That's more than enough to help you get started, help me get started. And then Mr. Spicer's like, no, like I love my work, like you can't do this. And he's like, well, bad luck, I'm doing it anyway. And genuinely like a really awesome like fire stunts, like
it's probably real.
It is, and it's everywhere. And I'm like, damn, this looks awesome. And basically Vincent Price gets left behind in the fire to perish with his waxworks.
Right.
And then it sort of cuts to time forward. Business partner is killed by what looks like, someone who's in sort of like a big fedora and cloak and has got like a very scarred face. To think, okay, obviously he's still alive. But then he comes back all brand new Vincent Price.
Oh.
And he's trying to start a new waxwork museum, but that leans a little bit more into the horrific. So, really good horror film. It's actually one of the first like 3D films. Okay. So there's a couple of scenes when like literally the person outside of like
so obvious, isn't
is
it?
like got like one of the like the paddle ball and is doing like that to the camera while explaining different things.
Amazing.
But no, like a really fun film, like a good little horror film, I think, from the 50s.
Nice.
Enjoyed.
My number 2 is White Christmas. Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye. Have you seen it?
No.
So it is a Christmas movie. It is a musical. It is awesome. I love it. It's so catchy. It's the kind of thing that I will watch every year in the lead up till Christmas.
Okay.
I really like Danny Kaye. He is also the star of my number 1 film. But also Bing Crosby is just super charming. And I forgot to write down
Rosemary
Clooney and Vera Allen played the 2 girls. And Vera Allen is a dancer, not a singer. So I actually think a lot of her audio might have been dubbed, which is very Singing in the Rain. So maybe I've just made that up. But she is an incredible dancer. Rosemary Clooney, not so much a dancer, but really good singer. So often you get Rosemary Clooney and the boys standing singing, and then Vera Allen like dancing around them. But as a group of 4, they are so talented, and it's lovable and charming, and it's very heartwarming, and the songs are really, really catchy. So yeah, White Christmas, watch it every year, had to be in my top 5 50s.
Very nice. My last film that I will be talking about is another Hitchcock film, one that you did mention, and that's Rear Window.
Ah, nice.
Old mate Jimmy Stewart, he's back again. This is Hitchcock's first collaboration with Grace Kelly.
That sounded like a question.
That was a question. I'm pretty sure.
I don't do my own research. I'm not going to do your research.
That's fair enough. You're the expert on the 50s.
Yeah.
You're she.
That's true. I did have a couple more on my list than you. You were like, I can't make 5.
Exactly.
Have some of mine, quick.
So Rear Window is one that I really enjoyed. Seems like there's like a lot of horror movies with like thrillers like sort of focusing on voyeurism of late. There seems to be a few that have come out.
Peeping Tom 50s? the first slasher film?
Not sure. Could be. You've got Jimmy Stewart, who's working as a journalist, who is wheelchair bound. He's got a broken leg, and he's parked up in his apartment in New York, and pretty much all he can do is basically see what's going outside his rear window. He starts to get like a little bit crazy.
Yeah, stir crazy. Right?
But ends up having I really like the chemistry between him and Grace Kelly and Thelma Ritter as well, who plays his sort of carer and like housekeeper and stuff. I think they all do sort of like a really good job sort of playing off each other, and I really like the set designs. I like how the film looks. I think that it starts to feel very claustrophobic the way they sort of shoot his apartment, and then obviously they're trying to end up tracking that. It's like, well, potentially there might be a murderer sort of in our midst of the apartment complex. And no, it's really good to sort of see how they get there. Like Disturbia with
Shia LaBeouf film
is I really enjoy that film.
Yep. So that's like a modern interpretation remake of it. But there's also, if you've seen the Simpsons episode where Bart breaks his leg, that is also a direct homage to it.
Yes. I just really like Rear Window. It's a really good film.
Nice. Yeah. In my number one spot, and not just my top 5 of the 50s, but this makes my top 10 films of all time. And that is The Court Jester. So, as I said, it's another Danny Kaye film, but the thing for me about this film that is so good, I mean, it's a comedy. It's got musical elements in it. There's a few songs in the mix. It doesn't feel like a film that would be super sophisticated because there are silly jokes constantly and physical comedy in it. But it is so intricate and so clever in the way that the plot interweaves.
Yeah, I remember, I think you told me about this film, I think literally on
I've had such passion in my eyes.
Yeah, I think maybe the second day of the year. So probably maybe one of in the first 5 convevations I've ever had.
Wow,
with
this
you.
Guy's intense.
He likes movies. He really likes the Norman Desmond.
The full Norman Desmond eyes.
You've got to talk about The Court Jester. Have you seen this film, Mr. Boylan? It's like, no, but I will. Stop looking at me like that.
Make sure it's on the list.
I still haven't seen it.
No, the thing that's so clever about it is that the main character is a bit of a buffoon. So he's a bit of a bumbling idiot. He's very naive to what's going on, but he's a freedom fighter fighting against the new ruling of the king and all of that kind of thing. So It's set in medieval times, but what's so compelling about it is that even though he is this buffoon, he lands himself in a position where through various different means, people need to use him for what they want. Mm-hmm. And so you've got the princess, you've got the witch, you've got his romantic interest, you've got the king, you've got the king's right-hand man, and they have all made contact with him and are trying to get him to do something for their own benefit. But none of them line up. But through mistaken identity, through hypnotism, through spells, whatever it might be, there's a lot of wrong place, wrong time, farcical elements to it.
Okay.
Everything just layers over the top of each other in a really, really clever way.
Cool.
And one thing leads to the next thing, which leads to the next thing. It is so complex, but it's brilliant. And half the time he doesn't even know that he's involved in these situations, but they just end up working out for him. Yeah. So, it is such a clever, dumb movie.
I like clever, dumb movies.
The balance between the two is fantastic. And so funny. Danny Kaye is always hilarious. Really good performer, like a musical theater performer. He can sing, he can dance.
Okay.
But one of the roles that he plays within this film, no surprise from the title, is the court jester. And he assumes the identity of the court jester. So you literally see him going around and parading around as the court jester and making up songs and things along the way. And you just go, this is just Danny Kaye being Danny Kaye.
Yeah. Ideal casting.
Yeah. So good. So even though the order of this segment in general is never going to be this is my lowest and this is my top one. I mean, it's pretty obvious from my description and the Norman Desmond eyes that the court jester is my absolute favorite of my top 5 today.
Very nice.
Sweet. Cool. So with this being a new segment, guys, we would love to get a little bit of feedback. Do you like this segment? Do you have suggestions for top 5s that we could do in the future? Also, how are you feeling about the audio video thing. I mean, if you don't like the video format, you can always pull an Ethan and just write audio as a comment.
Sound.
We'll be able to work it out.
Or just put no face in all caps.
Yeah, exactly right.
We'll get the message.
But yeah, we'll keep mixing it up, but it would be nice to get a little bit more feedback on that. So please, detailed comments with the things that you like, the things you want us to mix up.
Or come tell us in Film Club as well. Have a chat. Have a chat about
right.
it. If you don't feel like you're a very good keyboard warrior, that's fine. You can just talk to us in person.
Exactly. Come chat to us. We love it. I would love to hear more from you, Ewan. Thank you for your intro to the podcast today. And yeah, as always, guys, share it around, like, subscribe, hit all the buttons, all the things.
All of them.
And with that, we will venture down the staircase and be escorted out to our very own police cars. Thanks, guys. Catch you at the next Film Club.
Free us.
This is what happened when I try to improv an exit.